All
Check
right.
it out.
Was it the one
All
you sent
right.
yesterday?
Hi.
Hello. So when you
Or
on the
was
bottom right-hand corner, you can, I think, click on that links. There you go. Yeah, and you can send that to people.
Okay.
all I did was click on me and I saw my face.
No, oh, here you go. Maybe I have to do this.
I swear to God, I'm in tech, and and I feel like I'm crippled with this Google
Yeah.
Hangouts thing.
Okay, so this is definitely not. Yeah, I'm not impressed by Google Hangouts. This is so confusing. I am constantly lost too. So I just sent you guys a link. I think that's the one you want to share.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
I think.
I don't see it.
It would be in the
Google Hangouts, you make me so mad.
see now?
Oh, is that like that little link you have that just popped up?
Yep, that one.
I can't. Oh,
Oh, okay, there we go. Can I copy that?
Yeah,
No, apparently
you can
not. It
share
just
that.
fucking disappeared. As soon as I moused over it, I right-clicked on it, it went away.
So
Oh, hang on. Oh, here it is.
I
If you
figured it out. If you
upper,
click it,
well, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a little blue square box, and
yeah,
if you click that, then on the right side, the link shows up. Now, can I copy this? Oh my God, I can copy it.
there you go. Very successful.
oh my
Jeez
goodness.
Louise. All right, let's see. We're live.
I'm just gonna retweet you, Vince. And
All right, there we. Well, I just tweeted it.
Okay.
I'm trying a different angle with the camera because the last time it was coming in from above because I have these giant monitors right here, and
Yeah, you look like
and I feel like I was like kind of slouching down like this in the whole thing. So now I'm like upright, so you can look up my nostrils.
Yeah,
Oh my god, that's funny.
man.
Yeah, now
Well,
you look like you're lording over us.
yeah, what's with the beard? Whoa.
Javelina!
That's right. I gotta be in costume.
I got my ponytails working. I'm ready.
Oh, I have a total mop worth of hair, but it's underneath this, so I don't want to pull it off.
Are you gonna do pigtails too?
You know, I could do pigtails. I got some long ass hair right now.
Oh, we should. We totally should.
Which way does the? Oh, I can do it from here.
Alright.
All right, so I feel like I've already accomplished too many technology things just by getting here today, so I don't want to try to get to the document. What's on our agenda?
So what we're gonna do mental toughness today.
We're going to do
Oh.
mental toughness.
Yeah.
Oh, and then last time we were talking about the omnivore's dilemma, and
Yes.
Right.
and I finished that, and I feel like I'm well versed and almost a vegetarian at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you been converted?
I do we want to talk about that?
Sure.
Okay, so the book is basically about it's talking about industrial agriculture and how organic has basically just been kind of sucked up into industrial agriculture because you get somebody like Safeway or Whole Foods that says, "Oh, we like your organic product," but it doesn't scale well because it's just this kind of tiny little farm.
Mhm.
And or like Whole Foods, they're another one. They went to some lettuce grower, and basically this lettuce grower had to go to Big Ag and say, "Help us out." And so what was organic and what we think is organic has now just become industrial ag. So they follow the rules, but the rules are kind of not to the standards that we would think. So the original idea was, hey, we're going to do it, natural or whatever. But then it just gets bastardized. And so after that, I was like, okay, well, and I kind of had the idea that organic was a bullshit term at this point. But it basically talks about how the chickens and the pigs and the cows are everything, and so that just like hearing that, and then I've watched stuff on like 60 Minutes, stuff like that, and it makes me cringe. But now I'm like, all right, I need to figure out where I'm going to get my meat because I'm not getting it from there. And then the vegetable thing is a lot easier. They have something called consumer supported agriculture. So basically, you find a farm that's doing it the way that we think is organic, and they do these deliveries. So for example, I'm going to pick up a delivery tomorrow in San Ramon from some farm that's in California that does it the way that we think is organic. They're doing it naturally, it's sustainable, and I'm not really into the whole sustainability thing. I just don't want crap in my food.
Yeah, my CSA just got dropped off on my doorstep like 10 minutes ago.
Nice.
Oh, so you do this already?
Yeah, I used to
Yeah.
have one in Vermont. Yeah.
Well,
I'll work you through it.
there's a website that I think it's called Local Harvest, and you can pick your geographic location, and they show you what you can get and when you can get it. But Tina, the tea monster, she works in the industry, and so she went to somebody at work, and they said, "Oh, there's this place up the road, and they deliver closer than the other place because I was going to have to go to Walnut Creek, and they only do like 9 months out of the year. This place does 12 months out of the year." So that's just I went through this book. I am kind of converting over, and this is where I am. And poor Christine, the old joke is, my wife's a vegetarian, so I'm a vegetarian. Well, it's kind of the other way around. And since I cook, it's basically whatever I cook is what she eats. So last night we had a meatless dinner, and she was like, "Okay, I guess this is what we're doing."
Yeah, it's not that bad once you get used to it. I mean, I feel pretty vindicated, though, because I remember when John and I went vegetarian 3 years ago, I remember taking quite a bit of ribbing about bacon in the forum. So I feel pretty vindicated right now. I'm pretty excited. But yeah, most of the reasons why John and I went vegetarian are exactly along the lines, Vince, of what you're saying with what you read in the book. Is, it was partly like, well, we can't get it harvested the way we want it, so we're just not going to eat it. And what I found when we switched to a plant-based diet or vegetarianism or whatever label we want to put on it, I found that I got a lot more creative with my cooking, because you kind of have to, right? Like, if you cook vegetables the way you've always cooked them as a side to meat, you're going to get bored like really quick. So you have to kind of get a little bit more creative with it, and it's actually made cooking a little bit more fun. I mean, granted, it's a lot more prep, I think, in terms of, lunch, breakfast, dinner, everything's kind of needs quite a bit of prep, but it's
I like a little pop-up.
Yeah, I know. We're like professionals. I love it. Fancy dancy. But yeah, so I really like the switch. I feel a lot better doing it. And the next step for you, Vince, is to get chickens, although I'm pretty sure they're not HOA approved.
They are not HOA approved.
Dang.
We have a ton of turkeys in the backyard, but they're protected, so it would be illegal for me to bow hunt them in the backyard.
Yeah. I'm not saying eat the chickens. You just get their eggs. That's
Eat
all.
the eggs, yeah.
You're not
Oh.
eating the chickens. But
I only have turkeys.
I will say too, this is the funny thing, right? When we first started this, it was all like, we can't get the meat harvested the way we want, right? Or so we did it all for this naturalist thing. And now when we got the chickens, because the egg issue is also pretty nasty, so we got our own chickens, and they have such personalities. I'm like, I cannot eat meat because these are like these are things. Like, these are like my little pets. Like, how could you ever eat them? This is ridiculous. They all have names. They like, they're adorable. Like, I can't eat these things. Are you kidding me? They're like little people with wings. No way. So I turned into like a little bit of like no, that's like a sentient thing there. I can't eat that. So that's your next level, Vince.
I can certainly eat meat. I just want to know where it comes from, and I think you can probably find something along the lines of the local harvest site. That seems to be pretty veggie, but I think you can find people that are growing animals the way you want them. In that book, they talk about this place. I can't remember where it is. It's someplace on the East Coast. It's called Polyface Farms, and it talks about how they basically built this environment where everything is kind of like how nature does it. The problem with big ag is that you've got this monoculture, so you're only doing cattle. So cattle just basically kill the land, and so you can't use that for anything else. Well, these guys they rotate everything through, and they do things naturally. So, and I don't remember like word for word, but basically like the cows come in and then they bring in the chickens later because the chickens do something with the cow crap and spread it out, and basically it allows for things to continue to use this without destroying the land. Well, I got to figure out where I can get my meat like that, where they're doing it, sort of naturally, as opposed to, like how they do it on I-5 down here in California, which is disgusting. But I still like meat, and I'm still going to eat it, and I don't care if it has meat. I just need to figure out where I'm going to get it.
Well, I'm going to complicate this discussion just one more little tick. I had actually listened to a podcast last week. I think it was on Trail Runner Nation or something I think that was the podcast, Trail Runner something. And they had interviewed the guys from, I'm getting up the name of what I was listening to because I want to accurately represent them. Trail Runner Nation, yeah. So they had interviewed these guys that had created the documentary Cowspiracy, which is just came out in September on Netflix. They had actually been traveling the country. The story's great. Like it's the podcast is definitely worth listening to. It was really good. I don't know how long ago it was though. It wasn't recent. Like I went back and anyway, they interviewed these guys that did Cowspiracy, and part of the issue with the cows is even if you're getting like grass-fed cows and you're thinking that's good for you, that's actually worse for the environment because you need so much more land. So it's like this. It's like both the industrial agriculture and this sort of grass-fed model is creating environmental impacts, and obviously the cows. And there's this whole funny segment on about their farts or the methane, but actually it's like 70 to 80% of that methane is actually their burps. But it's funny. But they were saying it's funnier to say farts, which is kind of true. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting in terms of you think you're doing this good thing by doing this grass-fed, and it's actually worse. Right.
Well, and then they were in the book they were talking about, there were a couple things. So he went down to Whole Foods, and he went through different things. Like he went to McDonald's, and he went to a feedlot, and then he went to, I see a dog tail over in the corner. That's funny.
Yeah.
And then he went to Whole Foods, and he said, and he bought this chicken named Rosie that it's organic and it comes from Petaluma Farms, and this sounds all great, and it's it's free range, and basically they've bastardized the terminology, and he went up to Petaluma Farms, and apparently they're just all in this giant room, and basically they won't let them out for 5 weeks, and at that point they won't go outside because they're too scared. But on either side of this giant building where all these chickens are housed, they have these two little doors that go out to these little patches of grass, and that's their free range.
Yeah.
And so then the other one that I didn't know about is, so there's grass fed, but there's also grass finished. So basically they're feedlot cattle, and in the last few weeks they put them out to pasture so that they eat grass, and then they call that grass finished, and it makes you kind of believe that, oh, well, this is better than the other, but basically it's still feedlot cattle.
Yeah. I think I gave up meat for like economic reasons, and what Maria said, like, dude, it wrecks the environment, all that. I mean,
for sure. Yeah, and that's a point that they make, is it's definitely bad for the environment to have all those cattle.
Yeah. Oh, they use so much water, and like the amount of calories they take to make a calorie of food is just ridiculous.
Well, and this whole thing starts off with corn, and how corn is subsidized, and how cheap it is, and how the farmers, they don't really know anything else, and it's this government handout, and so they just continue to do it, and how bad that is for the environment as well. And I'm definitely not that kind of guy, but because to me it's just an evolution of like, how do I become a better athlete? And gave up fast food, gave up pretty much anything that was, like in a package that's microwavable or whatever, and this just seems like the next evolutionary step.
Yeah, and I used to do meat. Like I used to do like grass-fed and sustainably raised fish and all that. But even then, man, I go in veggie completely. I feel so much better when you work out.
But you eat chicken, don't you?
I don't eat it anymore, no. I don't
really? You gave up chicken? Holy crap.
I gave up everything.
Because they're cute, Matt. You should
so
eat them.
Oh, no, my old roommates have chickens now in Vermont. And A couple of my friends up in Minneapolis. I think California needs to get on that train. It's impossible to have chickens in California. Everyone lives too close together.
I have to real quick correct myself. I said it was Trail Runner Nation. It was actually the Rich Roll podcast. I listen to too many of these things. This is what happens when you train for 100 miles. You listen to like 19,000 podcasts, and they're all sort of together. So I just wanted to correct that for anyone listening. It was the Rich Roll podcast talking about Cowspiracy. And it was the September 13th episode. Yeah, all two people. No, we're going to replay this. We're going to be big, people.
Yeah.
This is pretty, and it was really interesting to listen to, and I put the Cowspiracy in my queue on Netflix. I definitely want to watch it.
How do I get it back to where the camera goes to who's talking?
Don't click on somebody. Like click off of all of us. Click on the face that's talking right now, or your face, or whichever one. Like in the middle of the screen.
If I click on any one of us, the box stays down there, and then it stays on me. And now I can't get off of that. Maria's, what's this? Has added Google effects.
I forgot. We got to have that.
Oh, man.
Oh, I give up. Anyway, continue on.
You don't want to stare at yourself the whole time?
No, I was actually staring at you, and Matt's a little box down in the corner, so...
Oh, okay. All right. So what are we talking about?
So we have beyond the physical and mental. Or beyond the physical, mental fitness. Sorry. Put the punctuation in the wrong spot.
Okay,
mental
so
fitness.
We're moving beyond the cute chickens and poor cows.
Yeah, no chickens anymore. They are cute, though.
They have such personality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you have a rooster?
No, that would get us in trouble.
Nelly
photobomb, there she is. I was just listening to this. I have a cat. She photobombs each and every of our episodes. It's her special appearance. There she is.
Does she like the chickens?
Well, when we first got them, I actually carried her. She's not an outdoor cat because the street. I don't want to come home and see her splattered from a car, so she's just not an outdoor cat. But I took her outside one time when we first got them, and when she saw them, she pissed all over me. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what that means. I feel like no. And Pace desperately would like to catch one and play with it in a way that I think I don't want her to do. So we have the yard separated. The chickens have one half of the yard, and Pace has the other half of the yard. But sometimes chickens fly over into Pace. Sometimes the chickens fly over into Pace's side, that's touch and go when that happens.
Yeah,
but you can hear them yeah, they have different squawks that they make. So like they have the "Hey, I'm happy to hear you," which is like burp, 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 burp. Then they have the "I'm laying an egg" squawk, which sounds like it's not 100% like pain-free. And then they have not 100% pain-free, that process. And then they have the "holy shit, there's a hawk, there's a dog, there's a something gonna get me." And I had heard that squawk that day, and sure enough, one had flown over on Pace's side, and they were all sounding the alarm like, rah, 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 like it was crazy. So I'm like, and trying to catch a chicken is definitely tricky. So we caught Pace, that was easier, and then John went and grabbed the chicken. So we kind of, it's tricky. This is what it's like on the farm over here in Absecon, New Jersey.
When are you going to get cattle?
I don't want cattle, but I would really love an alpaca. That would be great.
Oh God.
Wow.
John has forbidden it, and I would also like a pig. I think they're adorbs.
What about a goat?
Oh, a goat would be great too.
Yeah.
But John said that John, my husband, for those listening that don't know, he's the beast of the East, as I like to call him, has forbidden any more animals. So
no more livestock.
No more livestock. I was definitely the kid that was like, come home and ask my parents, can I have one of these? Can I have one of these? Can I have one of these? Like, I wanted all of the animals. So that has continued. And John tolerates it somewhat, but no alpacas or goats or pigs.
Goats will destroy everything.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Our friend, Eric, our friend Eric, he has a goat. They have 2 goats, actually. Yeah.
For pets?
And they also have chickens. And a dog and a cat.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
All right,
they
so
they
mental.
walk the goats down the street though, which I think is funny. All right, let's talk about something else.
Yeah, I know. This is like Farmcast. All we've talked about is like food and livestock.
And
Yay!
we sit here in our nice little HOA condos talking about livestock.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whoa, Matt, I don't
How
live in an
credible are we?
HOA. They don't.
What
I
do
don't
you?
live in an HOA. I am not
Oh,
HOA approved. I assure
Yeah,
you.
I'm not sure I am, but we've managed
yeah,
to buy our way in.
yeah. I thought that too until I had to move to California. Now I am.
Oh yeah, I guess you don't have many choices.
You don't have an option. No.
All right. All right. So we're talking about mental stuff.
Yep.
Well, I'm mental.
Hmm.
Fair enough.
So, what's next? Whose topic is this? Is this mine or yours or?
I think this was originally Matt's, and then
Oh,
I
okay.
Is it
added.
my fault? Oh, I can talk.
Oh, I was gonna say somebody lead it out.
Actually,
right,
Vince,
so-
it looks like you talked about it,
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
I
you were
asked
talking
all the
about
questions.
Maria
I
and
couldn't
Vince.
prompt
or Maria and Matt. Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it, Matt. You be like the interviewer.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good at
Sounds
that.
good. Sounds good. Oh,
You've
thanks.
got skill sets.
I have skills.
That's got
Oh.
game.
That may not be true. That's not entirely true. All right. So I struggle off mental training with mental toughness. I think it's one of my weaknesses. I think Vince knows that. What do you guys do? Like, I know you're doing 100 miles, Maria. Vince, you've done hundreds. You've done tons of Ironmans. Do you guys still continue mental training, or how did you become mentally tough?
I'll lead that out. Okay. Yeah, always, and I just think it's something that develops over time, and I think I think okay. So let's go back to I think how we jump into races. So I've taken on a bunch of new athletes recently, and one guy, just did his first sprint, and then he immediately jumped to half Ironman, and now he's training for Ironman, and I think that's a gigantic leap,
Mhm.
and I think there's so many problems with that, and one of them being mental is doing a sprint and doing an Ironman are not the same beast. And I think you have to develop it over time, and obviously we can get there, but even like with Tahoe Rim, the 100 I just did in July, I just felt like that was too big of a mental jump for me. I wasn't prepared for that, and I think like you and I have talked about, making sure that you put yourself in situations that are as hard as Ironman, or at least as close as possible. And I think you just kind of like everything else, you need to practice that. And I mean, I look back at like some of the crazy workouts I did, when I was training for Ironman, like back in the day, it was like 100 degrees out, and I had it was like a 56-mile bike, a 13-mile run, another 56-mile bike, and then I think it was a 5-mile run or maybe an 8-mile run. I can't remember exactly what it was, and that was like continuous, and like after that first brick, I was like already coming unglued, and I suffered through that entire workout. Well, by the time I got to Ironman, it didn't seem like anything in compared to that day, and I've had a lot of those days. I've had a lot of like Christine right now. I think she needs to get put into situations where the day is harder than Ironman, and I said I think maybe you could benefit from doing a training camp. So she's going away. I think it's like February or March. She's going to go basically play pro for a week. So she'll come back and she'll have ridden a few hundred miles and basically live the life of a pro for a week. She'll come back from that. I came back from one of those, and again, it was just another one of those days when you get in the Ironman, and even if it gets if it's a hard day or whatever, it just doesn't seem as big as that day, or one of those days. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think so. The mental piece is probably for me the most important part. I mean, the physical training is a given, right? So you're going to do the physical training, but like what Vince is saying, it's not just like doing the rides or the runs or the swims. It's your reaction to those things. So there's so many things you can't control in training and on race day. But the thing that you can control is your response to them and how you think about them and how you do or don't fixate on them. So, when I think about mental training, I think it's always and every day. Like it's a never stopping thing. And this is one thing that like Vince was saying with the people he coaches, similarly with me, I feel like sometimes as a coach, my bigger job is the mental training,
Yeah.
than the physical putting the dots together in terms of here's the rides, here's the runs. It's more working with people to teach them how to deal with pain, to teach them how to deal with being uncomfortable, to teach them how to deal with bad performances, right? Like you go out and you come unglued, like Vince said. Like instead of being like, I suck at this is not going to work, I'm not going to be good at this. It's not just learning how to manage the sensations of coming unglued. It's also learning how to adapt to those sensations, to understand that if you feel bad now, figure out why, right? And then wait 15 minutes. Don't give in. I think
Yeah.
the biggest mistake that people make is they give in. And we're going to talk about this next podcast with my husband when he comes on to talk about his double Ironman experience, because if he had given in, the race would have gone really differently. And he didn't. We just kept thinking one lap at a time, one step at a time. So I think that that's a really important piece of it too. So you can't take the mental training for granted, and I think sometimes people do. Like they expect that they don't need to put any work into how you think about training or how you think about racing, and then they're going to show up on race day and it's just all going to magically work. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. So I think for me, the mental training is probably the biggest part. And this is why, Vince, I waited for you to go first, because I think you taught me this, right? I came to you not particularly mentally tough. I think I came with the right tools to be mentally tough. I just didn't know how to use them and put them together. I think that's why I was just kind of pausing, because I think that you taught me a lot here, so I didn't want to kind of repeat some of these things. But
well, I've learned from failure.
Well, I have too, and I think that's actually the key point there, right? Is that you're learning from failure, and instead of saying I failed, I suck, it's okay. Why did I fail? Why did I, and not even just thinking about it as failure, it's like, why didn't I get the thing I thought I should have gotten? Physically I should have been able to do that. Why didn't that happen? That's one part of it. But I think another part of the mental training is kind of like what Vince was saying with sending Christine, his wife, off to training camp, is she needs to learn how to manage some of the sensations, or I'm guessing that's the conversation you're having with her, because that's part of it too. This shit hurts, man. It just hurts. I can't tell you how many times when I do race plans with my athletes, I tell them it's going to hurt if you do this right.
Yeah. Well, it's like quieting the noise.
Yeah.
Because you get you're in the middle of a race, something goes wrong, you don't know what's going wrong, and you just start digging a hole deeper and deeper, and you need to kind of quiet that noise and then problem solve, like when you and I were texting back and forth, like while John was racing, trying to figure out what we can do for him.
Yeah.
And that experience, from those hard days, that helps, because you're like, I've been here before, or maybe I haven't been this bad, but I've been close to this bad, and I know that I need to problem solve this. But I think that's something that's developed over time, and I just think, like Christine, I keep wanting to put her into harder situations. We did that trail marathon last year, and it went longer than we thought it was, and she was like, oh, this sucked, and I don't want to do this, and I'm like, no, this is awesome. This went longer than you've ever run, and you got out of it. And I just think that's important, and that's kind of what I was saying to you, Matt, is like, I think Matt and I are going to go do some long ass run, and I'm basically just going to run him until he breaks, and then we're going to problem solve him and probably run him for another 10 miles. But that day is going to be harder than an Ironman. Yep. And then once you can master that, it's like people, Maria's going to do 100, and and John will say, running 100 is like running 50. The difference is that pain that you are feeling at 50 miles, it just extends for another 50 miles. But everything else is pretty much the same. But if you can wrap your mind around it, then it's just like, I mean, if you can run 50 miles, you can run 100 miles. And if people think that's like weird or whatever, but it's just true. And if you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. It is, and at that point, from like 50 to 100, it's really just everything between your ears at that point. You got to quiet the noise. You got to problem solve. Things are going to go sideways. It's a really, really long day and night and day. And Maria's going to experience that. Ta-da!
Yay! Well, I've already experienced it, at least in terms of the length, right, with the double
Yeah.
Ironman. But I fully understand that running for 24 hours is different than swim, bike, run for 24 hours or 25 hours. So I do get that, but I think that that's exactly right, that you just kind of have to wrap your mind around what it is and try not to think about the end point. If you think about the end point, yeah, it's going to be a really long day and night and day. But we actually have someone tweeting us.
We do.
Yeah.
We got a viewer. Nice.
Woo woo! Scott on Twitter asks us, how important is doing really stupid things to building mental toughness?
Oh,
He also
question.
says you're looking good today, VM.
Oh, yeah. You know, I wanted to say that I dressed specifically for Scott today. After catching crap from my button down. Yeah, I think so. I know what Scott's been up to lately, and I guess the difference, you know, and something I said to him was, it's cool to do stupid things, but you just got to make sure that you're not just miserable the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're trying to develop that strength. And I actually know Scott pretty well, and I think Scott is a really tough dude, and I don't think that he has a problem with that. I think, you know, but he does kind of fall into that category of like he's excited by racing, and so he's like, I want to do everything, and it's like, all right, you need to pare that down to the things that are really important, and then what you need to do is you need to complement that, you know, with things that will help you for those events. You know, so, you know, everybody that's ever worked with me knows that I won't let them do anything shorter than a half Ironman leading into an Ironman. I don't think the you know, like throwing in a sprint distance is valuable, because, you know, for me, if I go do a sprint on Saturday, my whole Saturday is wasted for an hour's worth of work. My whole Sunday is wasted because I'm completely wrecked from the sprint. Whereas normally I would have done, you know, 5-hour ride, probably, you know, a transition run, maybe a swim in there, you know, 4,000-yard swim, and then maybe a long run. Well, that's a hell of a lot more time than that 1-hour sprint. So I just think you need to pick and choose, as I'm like staring at his Twitter icon, I think you need to pick and choose what races are really important to you and then complement them.
Do you have sort of, I know you usually say like 8 weeks out you do like a big day. Do you kind of have a template you would recommend for like an Ironman maybe?
You know, stock stuff. I've done things over the years. Like I used to like doing a half Ironman. Kind of, you know how I have those at 5 and 3 weeks out from the race. I like those 2 big weekends.
Mm-hmm.
I used to take that middle weekend, forget the big weekends, I'd take that middle weekend, the 4-week out weekend, and do a half Ironman. But even that I found to be less beneficial than having those 2 big weekends. I like that better. So if there's anything that is almost consistent for everyone, it's 5 and 3 weeks out. There's going to be a long ride, a long run. The following week's going to be a break, and then the 3rd week out, there's going to be a long ride, a long run, and then tapering down.
Your breaks aren't very easy. I just want to throw that out there.
What's that?
Your breaks aren't very easy. I just want to throw that out there.
Oh, do you need a hug?
Oh, pumpkin!
When you say break, it means like only like 18 hours this week. It's just,
yeah.
It's just not.
Oh, dude, I'm already like devising next year, because I think everybody needs to up their game. Just looking at how athletes have done this year. Just like not my athletes, but like all athletes, everybody's game got upped, and I'm looking at what I think is a staple, and I'm revising that. I think there needs to be more work. Next year is going to be a lot harder for people that I coach. I'm just letting you know.
Good luck with that, Junk Miles Nation.
Yeah.
I'll start looking elsewhere. So,
yeah, you go find a soft coach there.
Yeah. So besides running, besides like really crazy days, do you have any other techniques? Maybe during the race. What do you guys do? Do you do mental tricks? Do you do counting? I count my breaths. That's what I do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, like when I'm in control of a race and things are hurting, I don't need to like chant things in my head. Um, but like at Tahoe, it just got out of control for me, and it got out of my hands. Like I wasn't. It took me a long time before I could get things back together. It just seemed like there were so many things that were going wrong that I couldn't diagnose it. Usually, and I try to do it like last weekend I went out and I did a 38-mile run, and I intentionally threw off my nutrition because I'm playing around with feeding off the course. I want to carry less with me. And so what I did was I stopped by the store and I got this. It was like almost 600 calorie wrap, and I ate half of it. And then I think 45 minutes later, I ate the other half. And the idea was I wanted to really kind of cause problems with my stomach, and then I wanted to work through it. And
I just on that note, I heard a pro once ate like Taco Bell before a big workout just to make himself really sick so he could test his nutrition.
yeah, well, ice cream sandwich run. So
Oh
Tim
God.
Tweedemeyer, Western States, used to do this thing where he would do what does it say? Famous on the internet. I gotta put this Twitter thing down. So I think 30 miles out from the finish at Western States, there's a big aid station, and what he would do is he would stop by this store that is in that town, and he would get an ice cream sandwich and a 20-ounce Pepsi, and he would down them. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's crazy. I mean, you got like all this sugar and you've got the carbonated beverage. But his thing is, he thinks it's an eating contest and you need to really calorie up at that point, and your stomach is just not going to be happy about it. So he like puts himself in this crazy situation where he's dealing
Hmm.
with this problem of his stomach, which was probably shut down, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Oh God.
And
Oh.
and that's kind of what I was doing, but not to that level. And I managed to get through it. I was like, all right, I can't take in a lot of liquids. I definitely can't take in any calories right now. I need to deal with it. But that was one problem. And it had other symptoms. But when I was in TRT, there was just my knee was hurting and my head was in the wrong place. There's just too much stuff going on. Sometimes it just I just think, if I got into a situation that was as hard as that, again, I think I could deal with it a little better. But that was the first time that I had taken it to that level, or at least in a long time.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things to say too to add on to what Vince is saying there about it. And Matt, you had asked specifically about like during a race, like
Hmm.
what you do. So I've got quite a few little tricks that I do, and like Vince said, it does depend what's happening in the race. If I feel great and all's going well, I need to do nothing except zone out and move. That's it. It's really not that hard. But let's face it, in an Ironman distance race, it's very unlikely that that entire marathon is going to feel fan freaking tastic. If it does, kudos on you, man. That's an awesome day. But it's unlikely to kind of work that way. So a few things that I do use the counting, but the counting probably only comes into play when I'm really off the rails, and I have and I there's nothing I can't get my brain to redirect in a positive way, because my first response is like if I'm feeling bad, it's to sort of assess the systems, right? Like, why do I feel bad? What's the problem? Is it my stomach? Am I just like a little baby pumpkin and I need to harden up? Like what's going? Like, is it just hot and I need to get a little tougher, or like what's going on?
With the
So
pigtails, that's very effective.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think that that's my first step, and this is something that I definitely learned from Vince, and it's a key mantra of mine that I use in training and racing: is less emotion, more objectivity. I mean, I repeat this to myself constantly. We joke about me being emotional, but I've learned that once the gun goes off, I am a pretty rational racer. I rarely fall into the old kinds of emotional states that I used to, and this is because you have to actively do it. You're in control of your head, so you have to do that. So the first thing, assess all systems. If it's going off the rails, what's going on? Is this a big problem? Is this a little problem? Is this just me needing to be hardening up? If it's food, eat. If it's water, drink. If it's you're feeling a little sore, tune into something else, right? If you're having like an all systems failure kind of thing, then yeah, sometimes, I have found counting to 100 is pretty effective, because by the time you get to 100, you've tuned something out, unless there's a bigger problem, right? Mantras are also really important to me. So I talked about the less emotion, more objectivity. But I think the one race where I really learned to master and adapt was the very first time I did Louisville. It was the hottest race I'd ever done. It was so humid. It was like 95 degrees, 72% humidity. Not like this past October for sure. It was a completely different race in August. And I remember being out there, and it was so hot, and the sun felt like it was like right on my forehead, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to stop thinking about being hot. So I shifted, and I was like, I love the sun. I get energy from the sun. I'm producing so much vitamin D right now. Like, no shit, this is what I was thinking. And within like 3 minutes, I stopped thinking about being hot. I was still hot, but I was no longer negatively responding to the heat. And that's the difference, right? It's your response to this kind of stuff. And then, like, that point, like as you get closer to the end of a run, you start making deals with yourself. I'll just a little bit off the gas. And I was like, no deals, Missy. You're not getting a slot like that. So I'd be like, sometimes I'd be like chastising myself, and sometimes you're like kind of rooting yourself on, and the people that I coach know this one pretty good. Like when they say things to me, I'm like, just suck it up, Buttercup. Like it's I've learned all my sympathy from Vince for sure.
Yeah, I have sympathy skills.
And another thing that I'll say too, and this is something that John and I picked up when we did a seminar with Bobby McGee. He would always be like, and this sort of relates to the whole less emotion, more objectivity thing, is like, ask yourself, am I dying? No. Move on, and it's sort of like, if you really are objective about how you're feeling, you'll realize I actually am okay. I just am uncomfortable. And that whole idea of teaching yourself to get comfortable with the uncomfortable has to start in training, like we've been saying, and then you have to actively and consciously decide to apply it in racing. You can't give in. Other things that I like to do in racing, I love rabbits. I'm almost always racing from behind on the run, unless it's a double Ironman, which is apparently my skill set. But in an Ironman, I am never even close to coming off the bike towards the front. So, I'm always sort of got people in front of me. And even if I am closer to the front, I'm always picking rabbits. Boys, girls, it doesn't matter to me if that's keeping me focused, right? So sometimes that external or that extrinsic motivation can help you, right? Because at some point you're so tired that internal motivation is irrelevant. So that external, like, I want to catch that person, is really good. I also find I love spectators, and I think they're helpful, but if I'm in the zone, I sometimes find them distracting. So I find that I need to tune them out, because they can actually throw me off my game, which is why I tend to like races where there are some quiet moments. Like, in Lake Placid, everyone's like, River Road, it's dead man's land out there. I love it, because I can just like tune in and go. And so you need to decide what works for you. If the spectators work for you, then obviously, pull energy from them. And I'm not saying I hate spectators, so people listening to this, please don't like throw things at me. It's not, I think it's wonderful that people come and cheer you on, but when I'm in the final, it's more the final moments of the final 10K of a marathon, for example. I really need to be in my head. I really need to be in the race and what's going on. So those are some things I would say, like, during racing that help me.
I don't like spectators either, if that helps.
That's funny, because I'm the opposite. I totally feed off of them.
Oh, yeah. It's so annoying. I just love it. I hate it when it's like, you look great. I'm like, no.
Yeah, well,
I don't. I really don't.
Yeah, you're doing awesome. Yeah, it's like I'm dead fucking last. But thank you. But I totally feed off of them.
Oh, I hate that.
And it's weird. There's definitely like this evolutionary process. Like, I remember, racing hard races, and I would have to draw on things like, this isn't as hard as that time or whatever. And now I'm quiet inside. But I definitely feed off of the crowd. But as I tell you, I'm always like looking at the watch, and I drive to a number. And I'm always driving to a number, and to me that keeps it honest. I know if I'm not hitting X BPMs or whatever, then I'm not pushing hard enough, and it doesn't matter who's around me. I do like chasing people down, though. I like it doesn't matter,
So
and it
fun.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it
So
is. I don't
fun.
care. Big old, whatever. I don't care. I'll chase them all down. And it was like Wisconsin when I got off the bike. I think he was like third overall or whatever. He was coming out in the second loop, and I'm like, "There's somebody to chase after." And then I wound up pacing him. And I was like dragging him. I'm like, "Come on, bitch, let's go."
Yeah, I love chasing people.
I like
love
the
it.
game, man.
I love reading. I think that's the other thing too. Like you have to figure out, like mentally playing the game works. I try, like in a long race like Ironman, you got to be careful how soon you start playing the game.
Yeah.
You have to be mindful of that. But the game, the strategy, the tactics, I mean, it's so fun. Like it's just, I mean, like in shorter races or things, like there's some races we do around here. I love sitting on people's shoulders and just like right behind them on the run and just have them wondering like, what the hell is she doing back there? Or the opposite of that, like, okay, I'm going to pass this person, but I got to collect myself and make sure when I pass them, they're like, oh, hell no, man, I'm never catching her.
Yeah,
So
you got to pass and get out of sight.
you got to pass and get out of sight. Yeah. But some of the races we do here, like we have some races here in Atlantic City that are crazy windy on the boardwalk, like in the early spring. So I will certainly, like there's this one 10-miler and it's out and back, and it's almost always one direction is full-blown hardcore headwind, and it's almost always the way out, just because of the way that time of year and the way the wind blows. So I will sit on somebody right behind them, like track style, and they're like, what the, look at me. I'm like, what's she doing back there? And as soon as we get to the turnaround, thanks for the lift, see you later. Being short has its advantages with that kind of stuff, because you could tuck in behind people pretty easily.
So one thing I do, have you guys heard of the tough principle? TUF?
No.
No, that's the one I use. Is when I'm fading and when I know it's starting to hurt, I do technique under fatigue, and I tell myself to be tough. And I, like a couple weeks ago, I was running. My girlfriend usually bikes along on my long runs. She tags along.
Nice.
And like towards the end, she'll start whispering things. She'll hand me water bottles, which is great. But then she'll also start whispering things like stay tough under fatigue and just be tough. So that's one I always do. And I usually drive to my run cadence. So then I'm like, if my feet aren't moving over 90, then I'm just not, Finn says to keep the feet to the fire, so that's why I start thinking about then.
Yeah.
And staying tall, keeping the arms close and easy. And that helps me just like take my mind off, Then you can really be objective with something like that. You're like, am I slouching? Is my, chest up? Am I running?
And like staying relaxed. And that's a really good point, Matt. And this is actually something when we were watching the stream of the of Kona, we were looking at the differences. I mean, granted, these guys are running like crazy, right? Like crazy speed. But
10-minute miles.
Yeah, but we were looking at the differences. Like, for example, like it worked out for Dino, right? Like he finished. But we were looking at the differences between his form and Raylert. Like Raylert looked like he was jogging, but obviously wasn't speed-wise. Whereas Frodeno was obviously moving, but you could tell he was all like his shoulders were up here. Yeah. O'Donnell, same thing. The shoulders were he was all like this, right? Rayler's like, like all nice and calm and just really grooving. And I mean, granted, it worked out the way it worked out, so it's not always about form. But I think for age group athletes, the more relaxed you can get yourself, the more efficient run you're going to wind up having. And it also has a mental effect too, because if you're focusing on your form and your form feels good, you mentally feel good. I'm feeling, I'm moving. If you're like this, you're immediately just slouch. Every time we volunteer for Ironman, like we will typically volunteer at Lake Placid each year when I'm not racing it, and just watching the differences on the run course, like as like I've worked the aid station there, and you can just see the difference in who's going to do well and who isn't, just by how they come into the aid station all slouched over like this versus trying to keep a proud chest, trying to keep a quick foot. Once you give in, you've given in. It's done. You can have a bad patch. You can have a bad patch and not give in. But if you have a bad patch and give in, that race is going to end different. It's just going to be a different day.
I tense up, and I don't have your form. I don't have Jen's form. Actually, Matt has great form too. And I would see these pictures after a race, and my shoulders are all bunched up, and I'm like, come on, relax, Jesus. And I try to go through that, where I tell myself, stand tall, push your chest out, relax, let your arms, like I'll drop my arms to get my shoulders down. I have a bunch of crappy photos of me running.
Aren't you doing?
Oh, sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, aren't you doing yoga now? That'll definitely help.
I'm thinking about doing yoga.
You're
I have to find the time.
long thought process.
I know. I'm just letting you know I'm not going to eat tofu. I don't like tofu. I think it's disgusting. It's not happening.
Who are you, Vince? I feel like I don't know you.
Who?
Who are you?
I know.
Vegetarian yoga.
I'm not vegetarian. I'm just.
What did John and I do to you? I feel responsible that we've stripped you of something.
I want to eat meat. I just want to know where it comes from.
I'm just playing with you.
I know. That's fine.
You know what I think with the
I'm not proud.
Yeah, I think the tenseness is actually even trickier in triathlon because you're coming off the bike where you're in that position, right? Like you're all bunched up. Because I mean, I have photos that look like that too. It's not. I mean, I'm not saying by any means that I'm perfect at it, but when you come off the bike, it's like you do have to kind of like reset. Like, woo, let's stand up, let's get it all down, let's feel comfortable. But it's I think that's a good physical and mental trick, Matt. Good one to bring in. I also think some techniques going into racing, some things to think about that I do, and you can call me touchy-feely hippie all you want, whatever, I will accept that. But I do a lot of stuff. So I think that visualization is really important, and this is something that I learned in high school when I rode crew. Our coach was so into like doing these intricate visualization sequences that I just learned it. And what he would do in these, and what I do now with the visualization sequences, is I have one visualization sequence where everything works out perfectly, right? Because and I usually end with that one so you feel positive, right? But then you have to have the visualization sequences where shit falls off the rails. Like you have to do that because and then when you're doing the visualization sequence, you have to work through how do you respond to that. I get a flat tire. What do I do? I feel sick to my stomach. What do I do? I get passed. How do I respond? You move through all the different things so that if and when these weird things happen on race day, you're at least mentally prepared for them, and you know what to do because you've already worked through the sequence in your head. So I think that that's pretty important part of what I do. I also think journaling is not to be underrated. So the reflection piece, right? A lot of this journaling I do publicly on my blog, but there's also some things I don't think the world needs to know about what happens in my head.
Really? You filter?
I do filter. I do. I know it seems like I don't, but I do. There's even more going on inside.
Wow. I know. Considering the things that you've shared publicly, wow.
I know. So I think journaling is really important just for the reflection piece. Whoa. So I think that's really important for that whole idea. So the failure thing, right? Like, so you go out and a race doesn't work out the way you wanted. How do you learn? Stop! You're just distracting me. What do you learn from that? So, like for me with labor pains, the most important thing was like, what do I have to learn from that? I shit myself. How do I prevent that?
And there we go.
Like how do I not do that again? And also just like how do I
things Vince and I will never understand.
So I think the journaling is important for reflection. And I think that that's something that people should do. And it's part of what I encourage. Like, so if you have a coach, whether you're Vince's athlete, you're my athlete, you're somebody else's athlete, that whole comment section in Training Peaks?
Yeah, use it.
You should use it. It's really important, not just for the mental piece, but also sort of the data analysis piece, which we talked about before. I think that those reflections are really important and trying, and even if you need to vent out the emotional bit, right? Vent out your emotions, right? It's this, whatever, but also then you can go back and think about how to adapt to what happened.
Oh, certainly, at least for me, not bottling things up and putting it out there in public, that kind of sets me free a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and just starting off by like writing it out there. This sucked. I don't know what's going on or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, especially as athletes get faster and faster, it's like you look at pros and they have coaches. Well, why do they need coaches? They could obviously plan their workouts. Well, there is, this person that's on the other side that's objective, more so than you can be, and I think that's important. People, Jen called me up right before the race, and she raced Louisville, and she was,
And
she
beasted
needed,
Louisville,
yeah,
beasted it.
yeah,
Said what?
that's my first age group win as a coach,
Yeah.
so that was pretty awesome. But she she called up and she had a problem and she needed to talk through it, and and that's, I think, important, is like having somebody there, that you can, dump those things to, and get a second set of, eyes or whatever, more so than say like the training aspect of it. Maria, I'm sure, could plot out, her own training for, for whatever, but just having that other person there, kind of helps out. I don't know. I don't. It's weird because I'm super emotional. I take everything personal except for my athletics. I've like become so detached about it. I just don't care. Like if I race Ironman, I don't care anymore. I don't. I mean, and I want to do well, but I've completely detached from it, and it's just at the end of it, I care about it, but during it, I'm just like, it's all about like the process, the numbers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you get there, and you've really like done well. I was gonna say mastered it, but I think that's probably taken a little too far.
All right, we're coming up here on an hour here, guys. So,
Wow, we talked a whole hour about farming and
farming.
mental toughness.
Oh, one last thing on farming. Have you guys heard of the app Eat This Much?
No.
No.
That's what I use now.
What is it? Eat this much?
Eat This Much. I gotta put a plug for it because that's what I'm doing now. Vince knows this, but about me. But I am a man of a plan, and I stick to plans. And most of my life I'm a list maker. I'm one of those people,
Mm-hmm.
I have
Lists are awesome.
I have lists for everything. And this is a list for my food. And it is a very, very, very good app for meal planning and grocery shopping. So it generates, you can set your calorie intake, your macros, and it'll make meals for you and then give you grocery lists that you can go and do, and you can set the complexity of every meal. You can tell which meals you don't need because you're eating out. It's one. I don't have many apps on my phone. This is one. This is better. This is the training pizza of my food. I use it pretty religiously, and it helps me because I'm not that creative with my cooking. It helps me like cook new things, and then I just go walk into the grocery store. I don't have to think. It has a list of things I need to buy, and it remembers what I bought last time, and so it's really solid. If you have meal planning problems, which I do, so I use that.
Oh, one more. Seafood Watch. Monterey Bay Aquarium has this app and site, and they have like a pamphlet or whatever, and it tells you.
Yeah.
What's that?
I've seen this. Yes.
Yeah. It's good for figuring out what fish you can eat, when you can eat it. It tells you, like, for example, obviously don't get fish from China because of all the problems with it. But then it'll tell you, get it from here, and it's part for health and part for sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been using that a lot lately because I'm only eating fish and I'm not eating chicken or beef.
Poor little fishies.
I know, it's crazy. It's so unlike me.
All right. So
Cool,
do we
so-
have something to wrap this up with? Did someone think of something?
Yeah. All right. I'll take a stab. Do
Yeah.
my lecture summary thing.
Come on, Professor.
Yeah, I know, right? So I think I would wrap this episode up. I mean, obviously we talked about the food piece of it, but I would say the mental piece of this is obviously the meat of this article or the meat of this podcast, and I think the main takeaways here is that mental training is to be done daily as is physical training. Every training session brings with it an opportunity to improve your mental fitness, to strengthen your mental fitness. There's various techniques you can use, both in training and in racing, but also in your downtime, during your recovery time, really important part of it. I'll also give a shout out to my blog. I'll be self-promotional, but I have a lot of mental training pieces on my blog. So if you go to runningalife.com, you can go to the training section, and there's a mental training whole section about it, because I've written a lot about it. But there's also like my race reports. You can get an insight into the thinking and the things that I've learned. I think that if you're looking for more resources, you can look for that there. But yeah,
and she's also got an article on how to get fecal matter out of your running shorts.
That's a bonus. That's a bonus content.
One more thing on mental. You know, I think one of the things that you've heard me say is that you need to take a mental break from things. You can't just keep grinding down, because, you know, over time, over years, that weighs heavier than the physical. Like, I can get up and I can go run something anytime I want, but mentally I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. And I think it's important at the end of the season to kind of break off at least from you know, some, if not all, of the training for some period of time, so that when you come back, you can dig really deep when it counts. So I'm gonna leave that there. We might hit that later on, but
yeah.
I feel like that was targeted right at me.
No, it was actually more something that I learned, because you know, it's funny when you're training for Ironman, when you start doing well, you get excited about it and you want to continue training. You want to continue training year after year, just stringing it together nonstop. And I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I don't care if I'm going to lose fitness. I was afraid I was going to lose fitness. And so I was like, that's it, I'm done. And I finished Hawaii that year, and my bike stayed in the box, and I didn't pull it out until like January. And I was like, I'm going to be slow, you know, I'm going to be slow, I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to suck or whatever. And sure enough, my fitness came back quickly. And then after that, I was like, I need that break every year. And I take that break every year. You know, so it's good to, you know, even with the diet, like, you know, I'm very strict right now. After Javelina, I'm going to fall off the wagon. I'm going to enjoy Thanksgiving. I'm going to enjoy Christmas. I'm probably going to be 10 pounds heavy, but it's okay. And you need that break from that strictness. So, sorry, recap. You want to recap again? I stole it and ran with it again.
No, that was good. Just do all the things we talked about, and you'll be
fine. Yeah, do it all. And go to Maria's blog.
Yeah, come see me over.
And why doesn't Matt have a Twitter account yet?
I do. It just is very inactive.
No. That's your work account. We don't want to like spoil your work account.
I thought we made a Yanking change.
We do.
Okay,
yeah,
maybe
we do.
It's on Twitter. Yanking change. Yanking chains. Yeah, that's what we're called.
Yanking change. That's the homeless podcast.
Yeah, and I'm Mass Life on Twitter, and Vince is Felog.
Yo.
Felog. I don't know how. I always pronounce it as a word. I know.
It doesn't matter. I don't. You know, people are like.
Is it Felog?
It's a log. Yeah. It's a Portuguese donut. That's and so if you like do a search for it, you come up with my blog and then a Portuguese donut.
Yeah.
All right, kids.
All right, let's wrap it up.
I gotta go get on my bike.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Good talking to you guys.
See you next time.
Next time.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll talk offline. All right. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.